the shrinking free will of citizens as a reason for the imposition of artificial intelligence. A lawyer of Athens, Dimitris Raskolakis, writes, "Give me TV and hamburgers, but don't burden me with the responsibilities of freedom." It's been said many times that the compliance and submission of citizens to the global dominant narrative of the health crisis caused by SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus is primarily due to the captivating power of television manipulation. All over the Western world, the silver-plated, deplorable mass media influence of deception, in the ordered service of the Antichrist New World Order, unleashed an unprecedented attack of fear, hysteria, confusion, misinformation on television aimed at neutralizing the free will and the critical capacity of citizens. Under these conditions, the ruling political and economic elite in most Western countries have succeeded in skillfully manipulating the thinking, feeling, and behavior of citizens, dragging them hypnotized and helpless into the potentially fatal vaccination chair. Unfortunately, the total dominance and unchecked power influence of media in shaping public opinion overturned people's intellectual resistance and ultimately stifled freedom of thought, applying the infallible method of manipulation with images, which turn citizens into docile, clueless people, beings who are unable to think, choose and decide, and are fatally captured, guided by the power of the television image. The absolute dominance of the mass media and the public sphere immobilized the citizens and installed in them the culture of immobility, obliterating their critical thinking and will. And at the same time, the ruling mass media, they nurtured vulgarity, hypnotized the broad strata of people, turning their attention to amusement and telegames, and artfully cultivating an attitude of passivity, complacency, and indifference, stripped the people of the spiritual virtue and value. A significant portion of citizens have chosen wrongly to exclusively associate the values of information and entertainment with television, which has led to the gradual decline of their mental function and perception. And being drugged by television, they have become an easy target for manipulation by the totalitarian power that has been lurking for decades to trap them in its healthy narrative. But there were also those citizens who saved the honor and dignity of the society, strongly resisting the fearful management of the pandemic. Using the invincible weapons of true knowledge, common sense and sober critical thinking, they refused to succumb to the unbridled television propaganda, obsessed with persecuted experts. All over the planet, millions of people with unparalleled spiritual courage and mental bravery managed to keep their freedom of will intact and differentiate themselves from the televised and robotic herd of social conformity. These citizens did not give in to the intellectual temptation that whispered in their ears with a lullaby voice the same repetitive trope that monotonously said various acts, social responsibility, serving the collective good of public health, saving their personal dignity and their psychosomatic health. In a mysterious and unrecognizable way for themselves, they managed to discern from the first moment the lies and half-truths, inaccuracies, contradictions of the managers of what was going on, did not submit to the most inhuman totalitarian regimes known to humanity, resisting successfully, defying the treacherous attack of the hypocritical invisible enemy. They remained free from all fear and mental coercion. We must underline the following hard truth. Today's man is unable to devote a few minutes of the hour to studying and understanding a text. The constant television barrage of confusing, contradictory, meaningless, and useless news, the constant scroll down of the mobile disrupts people's mental concentration, weakening their critical thinking and ability. As the citizen receives a barrage of images and information on social media, he's easily overwhelmed, as a result of which he cannot delve into a text that requires high concentration and mental alertness. We have evolved into a society that places great emphasis on the audiovisual stimuli of television and social media, which mechanize human thought and behavior, making the citizen an easy prey for its manipulation. At the same time, we underestimate the non-negotiable value of knowledge that intellectually shields man and makes him immune to every attempt at televised taunting and misleading him. The education system of our country bears the full responsibility for today's heartbreaking disintegration of the citizens. The schools of the 21st century are being instrumentalized unknowingly with the tolerance of the educational community by New World Order politicians to realize the vision of the Antichrist supranational elite, according to which the creation of a totally controlled and surveyed society with numbered and obedient citizens is sought. In the context of the promotion of New World Order agenda, the globalist agenda, educational units are consciously transformed into nurseries for mass production of helpless, fearful, submissive children who, as tomorrow's adult citizens, will have been trained to comply completely and uncritically with every command and decision of totalitarian power. The previously mandatory hypocritical option gives a decisive blow to freedom of thought and expression. Now, is it possible that people could be imposed with things in the future as distinguishing feature of socially inferred caste of people that will differentiate them in relation to those who will belong to the elite population surveillance group, which will wield power exercising absolute social control? The New World Order politicians, serving with absolute commitment and religious reverence the alienated purpose of New World Order, utilized to the maximum extent the psychological techniques of manipulating the masses so that the establishment of mandatory measures as a coercive compliance mechanism of masses no longer appears necessary. Having managed in the last years to terrorize citizens, today they seek their voluntary discipline in observing measures applying in the social field of behavior model of pushback, which manifests itself under the current conditions in the form of voluntary establishment of the state. In other words, a respective governmental authority attempts to lead citizens to adopt a desired for the state social behavior without the use of external coercive elements such as fear and punishment. Therefore, a government that bases its policy exclusively on debilitating repressive mechanisms is not as effective as another corresponding government that does not resort to brute force or to the imposition of excruciating administration punishments, but chooses to skillfully manipulate thought, behavior, and the feelings of citizens. The author, Aldous Huxley, in his excellent book, Return to the Brave New World, very aptly notes the following, quote, "The nature of psychological coercion is such that those who act under coercion are left with the impression that they are acting on their own initiative. The victim of mental manipulation does not know that he is a victim. For him, the walls of his prison are invisible, and he himself believes that he is free. That he is not free is only apparent to others. His slavery is strictly objective." End quote. Therefore, in just a few years from now, the free and critical thinking man will be an endangered species. Today's elementary and high school students are already diligently trained to despise the smiley happy face as an image of the holy triune God and to love his masked slavery. If the education system were firmly oriented to the timeless ideals and values of Christian orthodoxy that highlight the superiority of the spiritual formation and moral perfection of man, cultivating the national and religious consciousness of the students, this would constitute a permanent focus of danger which would threaten the globalized power of the New World Order supranational elite which seek the spiritual enslavement of humanity and the abolition of free will of citizens. Look again at the book Return to the Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. We're surprised by the prophetic insight of the American author, who makes an extremely sobering observation. Quote, "But under a scientifically organized dictator, education will work effectively, with the result that most men and women will become accustomed to love their slavery and never dream of rebellion. There does not seem to be any good reason why they could scientifically study dictatorship or be overthrown. The educational system already is a scientific," end quote. "The educational system is already in a scientifically methodical way cultivates in the students their slavish submission and compliance to the deified science and the hierophant experts, imposing a totalitarian system of discipline that favors leveling uniform thought, behavior, and expression in all children. The school of 2022 is feverishly preparing to bring forth the robot citizen of 2030, a clueless, guided, and controlled citizen who will never question the decisions and choices of the impersonal and authoritarian digital authority, but having reached the ultimate degree of alienation will happily obey, dutifully carrying out the orders. The robotic citizen, the obsessive pursuit of every totalitarian state, who will resent or reject human relationship and contact, finding solace and relief in his digital twin brother, quote-unquote, will have forgotten the concepts of freedom, love, and humanity, living permanently connected in an augmented reality, quote-unquote, world of his own, hence metaverse. The exact digital copy of each human will be the dystopian society's precious prize to the isolated, desensitized, and disciplined citizen who has chosen to exchange the uniqueness of his personality for the glittering, immaterial, transcendent Eden of cyberspace. The fourth industrial revolution, as the World Economic Forum heralds it, implies the total digitalization of our lives that will be subject to a constant and relentless control by a system of intelligent machine learning algorithms which will regulate, program, and determine the behavior of citizens. In the near future, as long as people are still in a state of nirvana, passively and uncomplainingly accepting everything, the nightmare scenario will be realized in which computing machines and artificial intelligence structures will progressively gain absolute control over people's lives. And for example, here, as Greece moves rapidly to the next track of digital transformation, the Ministry of Digital Governments brought to the plenary session of the Parliament a draft law for the integration into the Greek reality of emerging IT and communication technologies relating to artificial intelligence, blockchain, the Internet of Things with the help of 5G network, postal drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, 3D printing, while at the same time Mr. Pierakakis committed to present to the Cabinet a national strategy for artificial intelligence. The explosive boom in digital innovation taking place at an unimaginable speed will ultimately lead to the oblivion of today's old world and the establishment of a new total techno-feudal world based entirely on computer power, big data, exploitation, artificial intelligence, in neurotechnology, that is brain chips, in digital and genomic medicine, and finally in biometric identification and digital tracking of people. In the brave new world that has already dawned, lucid science will gain the unimaginable ability to manipulate the genetic code of life itself, and the hybrid citizen will be completely governed and depend on computing machines and structures of synthetic artificial intelligence. In October 2017, it was held in Germany and the US, a major poll by UK-based multinational polling firm YouGov that asked citizens the following terrifyingly unimaginable question, yet another powerful testament to society's moral decay. Quote, "Would someone have sex with a robot?" End quote. The resulting answers were particularly interesting since it seems that a remarkable percentage of people have already formed who declare themselves positive in sexual intercourse with an artificial intelligence structure. In the context of the dystopian society that's already spreading unbearably at the expense of the emancipated civil society, the free will of man is clearly endangered, if not endangered as computational artificial intelligence constantly infiltrating the entire range of human activity. Gradually, it will sideline the person and ultimately neutralize his participation in making critical and defining decisions for his life. Increasingly, the boundaries between the digital, virtual, and the real world are becoming blurred as digital reality expands to absorb the interpersonal, work, and social relationships of citizens. Wonder: what will be the essential difference between a clueless, fearful, obedient, disciplined, and therefore robotic citizens of 2030 and a computing machine of synthetic artificial intelligence? I'm very much afraid that the difference will have been eliminated, the author says. Just as the behavior of mental functioning of the artificial intelligence structure is subject to the programming and control of the manufacturer, so too will the thinking and behavior of the citizen be regulated and programmed through televised propaganda and manipulation. The citizen will be informed by the media of mass influence and deception about the appearance of a new threatening variant of highly contagious respiratory virus, and will disciplinedly and obediently rush to be vaccinated for a thousandth time. And just as it is unthinkable for the artificial intelligence structure to exercise control and differentiate itself from the manufacturer's instructions, that is, with the technological data so far, because in the not-so-distant future, it is considered very likely that they will change. Accordingly, the citizen of 2030 will have educated, quote-unquote, by school not to question the directives of the authorities, but to passively comply and meekly execute every order and decision dictated by the digital totalitarian state. The robot citizens of 2030, having been deprived of their emotional intelligence, will behave, act, and speak in the same uniform and unchanging way, and will not be required to think and decide, since the upper ruling elite will guide them and will direct them using audiovisual messages. The extensive and in many cases abusive sending of standardized messages by civil protection to citizens' mobile phones aims to familiarize them with the idea of social manipulation and guidance, freeing them from the responsibility of personal decision and depriving them of the right of free will and choice. The depressed robot citizen of the near future will unfortunately have voluntarily surrendered to a globalized totalitarian power, the most precious gift given to him by God, hence autonomy, the right to think and decide freely for himself, losing one for always his soul and his humanity, and therefore will have been almost completely identified with a docile but lifeless artificial intelligence structure. The modern world is rapidly sliding towards an inhumane digital totalitarianism that will police and stifle freedom of thought and expression, with citizens imprisoning themselves in their digital cells and artificial intelligence structures taking the leading role, determining, planning, and controlling the lives of helpless people. At the same time, human society, as a society of persons created in the image and likeness of the Holy Triune God, as it chooses, making a reverse use of self-authority to distance itself from the God-man Jesus Christ, is already mutating into an absurdly violent and sacrocratic formation, which flattens all moral barriers and inhibitions and is therefore bound to lead fatally to self-destruction. Because brutal and blind violence and unbridled pansexualism are the main characteristics of a declining and demon-possessed society, while humble attitude, meekness, forgiveness, and psychosomatic purity testify to the sweet presence of God in people's lives. May divine grace shine the holy days of Christmas on the souls of tormented and pained people, washing away the desolation and darkened face of the earth that is hurtling towards self-destruction and doom. Let's all pray with humility, with simplicity, and with a broken heart, that the little Christ is born in our soul, offering as gifts our mistakes and failures, so that the Holy Triune God will strengthen us in the dark winter and the dawnless night as the dawnless night comes galloping. And this I've translated for you from the Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box